Good afternoon, my name is Evan Budd. I'm in Chemistry 110N, Lab Section 2, and I will be performing the experiment reactions of copper percent yield. In the experiment reactions of copper and percent yield, it started with pure copper. Throughout the experiment, nitric acid was added, and sodium hydroxide was added to the copper and then heated. After it was heated, sulfuric acid and granular zinc metal was also added. Throughout the experiment, the reactions were recorded on page 12 of the lab manual. The color changes, physical changes, and evolution of heat were recorded in detail. After the reactions took place, they were then transferred to figure 1 on page 10 of the lab manual. So first, nitric acid was added to the copper, then later water, resulting in a brown smoke, as you can see on page 12 of the lab manual, to a blue appear, turning the solution into a light blue color. If we go to page 8, if you look for a light blue color, it would be CHE110N. So in this, since it has to, since the bullet boxes have to contain a copper compound, it would be CHE110N, which is an aqueous solution. Secondly, sodium hydroxide was added and NO2, which is a gas. Secondly, sodium hydroxide, NaOH, was added, causing the bright blue solution to react into a royal blue substance. So if we look on here, the royal blue substance is CuOH2. So in the bullet box, we'll write CuOH2. And since sodium hydroxide was added, it produced copper hydroxide, which is a water-insoluble salt, with the salt being sodium nitrate. So in this box, we'll write sodium nitrate, which is NaNO3, which dissolves in water, yielding a colorless solution. The solution was then heated, turning to a black substance, with all of the salt floating to the bottom. In table 2.1 on page 8 of the lab manual, it appears that the reaction is now copper oxide, which is a black water insoluble salt. So in the box, you'll write CuO, which is copper oxide. And there's H2O, which is a liquid in the solution as well. Sulfuric acid was then added, causing a reaction that turned the solution to a bright blue color, resulting in the formation of copper sulfate, which is CuSO4, which is an aqueous solution, and that resulted in the formation of copper sulfate. Zinc was then added with H2O. Zinc was then added to the solution, which resulted in zinc. So this would be Zn2+, which is a solid. And this would be ZnSO4, which is aqueous. When it was added, there was a bubbling, which released a colorless gas, which is hydrogen. So this box would be H2 for hydrogen. To find the mass of copper recovered, you have to subtract the mass of the evaporating dish and the recovered copper by the initial mass of the evaporating dish. So for our experiment, the mass of the evaporating dish and recovered copper was 41.146 grams. You then subtract that by the initial mass of evaporating dish, which is 40.566 grams, and that equals to 0.580 grams of copper recovered. So to find the percent yield, you have to divide the recovered mass of copper by the initial mass of copper. So the initial mass, or the recovered mass of copper, was 0.580 grams. And we have to divide that by the initial mass of copper, which is 0.522 grams. And then you have to multiply that by 100. And that gives the percent yields to 111.12% of copper. Our percent yield was above 100% because when we came back to weigh the copper, it could have not been completely dried. But if our experimental error was less than 100%, it could have been because copper was still left on the capillary tube.